Selby. I'm Councilmember Weezer. I've been joined by Councilmember Englander. We have a quorum. We're going to go through a couple of consent items, and then we will go to item number 7. That'll be our first item on the agenda. Item number 8, we will receive and file. That's the director's report. Item number 4, we will pass on consent. And items 5, oh no, we do have items numbers 5 and 6. We will hold items 5 and 6. So we'll just put item number 4 on consent and go to item 7.
Sure. Item 7, Councilman, is an appeal by Jay Handel and Al Casas and Samantha Giroux Chavez, and they're appealing the action of the City Planning Commission relative to the approval of a charter school in CD 11.
Okay, Mr. Englander, you wanted to start off with some
Yes, and I recognize, I believe the council member from the district is here as well. Is Mr. Bonin here? Okay, so before he comes up and speaks on this particular item, I want to let you know that I've done the one thing that my wife has always told me not to do, and that's clone myself and become 2 people. So I'm actually in 2 different committee meetings right now. And let me tell you what that means to all of you. We're a committee of 2, which means the second I walk out the door, we lose quorum. On this item, it is a Fair Hearing Act. It is an appeal case, which means that all of you have the opportunity to speak. Now, I don't want to deny you of that, but I'm telling you my dilemma is that I've got minutes here, and then I've got to leave and go back into budget. We're in the middle of budget deliberations right now. It comes once a year. It's every single day, 10 hours a day. For weeks, I'm there. So I've walked out to come into here because many of you have asked me to do that as well. So you would have that opportunity. However, if you wish to speak, you can do so, and you can make up that decision on your own, or you can all stand up and say your position. I will let you know exactly what my position is right now, which is incredibly unusual for me. But I've read everything in this case. I've listened to testimony. I've spoken to many of the parents. I've talked to a lot of the staff members, and I'm comfortable with where I'm at. The hardest 2 things to ever get done and built in the community, bar none, are school and a church or a faith-based organization. It's the 2 hardest things to ever get done and built in a community. And I've seen the passion from all of you, and I see it all the time on every single school that comes through for a new school or an expansion, whatever that might be. I get it. I've got 2 kids of my own too. I get it. But oftentimes it's crazy to me that we could probably build prisons faster in our communities than a school. Having said that, and somebody pointed that out to me recently, they shut their lights off at 8 and they don't have any traffic. Having said that, I believe that a compromise, and a good one, has been reached. I'm in full support of that compromise, including the proposed 7-year moratorium on enrollment. I think it gets everybody, and a compromise is exactly what a compromise is, so that all sides come together. And I think that's a win-win. That's where my decision is. It's not going to change. That's where I'm at. So if I do leave, which I will, and that's entirely up to you guys, and I'm not denying you of any fair hearing, what that triggers then is we can't satisfy public comment, and then it becomes a whole new issue once again. It opens it back up because that has to be satisfied, whether it's here, keeping it here, sending it on to council, whatever that is, it does not give any closure. That's where it's at. So with that, if we could hear from the council member of the district, if he's prepared. Council Member Bonin. Who's also cloned himself, I believe.
Yes, I'm also supposed to be in the Budget Committee hearing, but this is a huge issue in my district. I wanted to be here. Colleagues, thank you very much for your time. Everybody here from both sides of the New West issue, appreciate everybody being here. I have certainly heard loud and clear the voices of everybody on this matter. I read every tweet and every Facebook post and every email that comes in, so I have heard from pretty much everybody on this. Colleagues, this is New West is a wonderful school. It gives a really first-class, world-class education. It is known throughout the city as being one of the best schools around, and at the same time, I got to say, it is known throughout my district and in West LA in particular as being a very bad neighbor. Not the students, not the parents, but the administration. This school has a very storied and stormy history in my district. It was approved as a result of a conditional use permit painstakingly negotiated and orchestrated by my predecessor, Mr. Rosendahl, who agreed to two fundamental conditions when this school went in 2012. One was that there would be a series of enrollment increases ending in the last year with 750. And his understanding, and that of the community at that time, was that that is where the enrollment increase would end. It was less than what New West had been requesting at the time, but it was what was determined as a fair compromise at that time. It also included a series of conditions. Since that has gone into effect, there has been troubles between the school and the neighborhood. I have tons of schools in my district, and as Mr. Englander said, every school, for whatever reason, is disproportionately controversial. Some schools start out with controversy and make a huge effort to be good neighbors. In the case of New West, I have been in meetings between both the administration of New West and members of the community, and I have at times, I will concede, seen rancor and ill will on both sides. And I've seen folks try in fits and starts to move past that. However, with New West, I have seen continuously the administration of New West, I want to make that very clear, not the parents or the students, but the administration have heard consistently a contempt for the neighbors. Every complaint from a neighbor, which is about a potential violation of a condition, is always met with dismissive and disparaging comments. When it was time for a review of the CUP last summer, I was faced with a decision. They were supposed to have their CUP evaluated to see how well it was being complied with. At that time, a number of the neighbors urged me to revoke the CUP and shut down the school. I did not agree with that and did not think that was appropriate. At the same time, the school said we wanted a lot more from the neighborhood. We wanted the ability to have events later into the evening. We wanted to use a nearby parking lot for our parking, and wanted a dramatic enrollment increase. And I said no, because of the continued violations of the conditions that not only the neighbors reported to me, but my own staff witnessed firsthand. I said, let's try to have a fair compromise for everybody. Let's do no enrollment increase for 1 year. Friends at New West, please, let's do one great year of compliance and show, as so many of the other schools in my district do, that you can be a good neighbor. And after that 1 year is up, then I will entertain the enrollment increase. The school rejected that compromise in June and went to the CPC and won part of their enrollment increase. I notified the school at that time that I was still not in favor of an enrollment increase, and I wanted them to accept the compromise. They continued to disregard the compromise that was on the table, and then they did something really that stunned me, and I have not seen this before. The school accepted students for the coming year as if the enrollment increase had already been granted, which put me and the city in the very untenable position of, if we wanted to enforce the conditions and stand our ground and say no enrollment increase, we had to say no to a number of local students, many of whom are from Brockton Elementary School in the area, low income, more diverse population. We had to say no to them. They were essentially being used as pawns and bargaining chips, and I found that to be particularly reprehensible. And it is something which I have found very hard to forgive. But the interests of the students and the interests of my constituents are paramount. And I did not want to punish those students, those good school kids, and those parents who are trying very hard to get the best education for their kids because the administration of this school continues to be a bad neighbor that I cannot trust. So, over the past several weeks, and I want to give a particular nod to Michael Schlesinger of the New West Board, who has been always focused on trying to make an agreement with the neighbors. My staff and I have hammered out a compromise with New West where I will not punish the kids for the transgressions of the administration and would consent to the enrollment increase of the 75 students if there were a series of conditions placed. You have those conditions before you. They include adhering to the promises that the school made to the Citywide Planning Commission regarding off-site parking, provision that they hire traffic officers 5 days a week, as other schools, other public schools in my district have done, that they have transportation monitors, a third-party ombudsman, that they have a community advisory committee to work with the community, and that they go through a plan approval process on this in a year so we can see how well they are complying. With the understanding that my recommended penalty for lack of compliance a year from now would never be to expel a student, but would to diminish the school's ability to enroll that number of students in the subsequent years, that they would have a diminished enrollment cap for the following year, so that no student is ever being forced to be punished for the transgressions of the administration. The school and I have agreed on 9 of the 10 conditions number 2 through 10 in the sheets before you. There's one condition where there is a disagreement, and it is a condition which is absolutely foundational to me. As I said, when it regards a cap on enrollment in future years. When Mr. Rosendahl approved this in 2012, it was his understanding, and it was the community's understanding, that an enrollment increase above 750 would never be sought. That was sought, as we said, this year. When I began discussions with some of the folks on behalf of the school a couple weeks ago, they said, no, don't worry, we're not going to need another enrollment increase. When I said, fine, let's enshrine that into the agreement that there won't be an enrollment increase for 7 years, they balked. It would be nice if I could say, after all this time, I can trust the administration and take them at their word, that if they say they won't do an enrollment increase, they won't do so. I cannot, because of my considerable experience with the administration over the past few years, trust them at their word. It is extremely important to me, and I would not support the enrollment increase otherwise for this year if there was not a provision that forbid the school from seeking an additional enrollment increase for the next 7 years. And I ask for that because I do not want you, I do not want the Citywide Planning Commission, I do not want me, I do not want anyone in my district to ever be in the position that we're in this year, where the school enrolls students and then tells us if we don't give them what they want, they will have to expel these students and tell them that the city is denying them an education. And it's because of that that it is extremely important to have that condition in here. I think this is a fair compromise. It gives the school what they want. It puts more teeth in here for the neighbors to get compliance with the conditions, and it makes sure that we do not have to repeat this battle year after year. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Bonin. Thank you for that. And is staff here at this moment? We would appreciate just a brief general overview of the procedures, how we got here, and what are the main items before us. Thank you.
Yes. Naomi Guth with the Department of City Planning. New West Charter School is a middle and high school, and New West was granted their conditional use in 2013, and per condition 11, they're here with a plan approval that was to be done 1 year after beginning operations. To be very brief, 3 appeals, 2 ask to overturn the decision of the CPC and find that New West is not in conformance with all of their conditions, and the 3rd appeal requests that in fact the CPC decision be upheld and enrollment be increased up to 875 as requested by the applicant. Staff would just like to add that we need to make a couple of technical corrections. When we issued the determination on the CPC action, we did not include the corrections that were entered into the record by the council action on the conditional use in 2012. As has been discussed, that condition number 2 on the school referred to a maximum of 750 students. It should have read 750 students for the 2014-2015 year and years following. That would now be stricken from the record because we're looking at an increased enrollment, but it should have read that way in our document. Regarding parking, condition 4E, a phrase was to be added that when we're reviewing parking requirements, that pursuant to condition 11 or at any time if requested by the council member for Council District 11, that we would revisit the parking. And then regarding condition 5A for hours of operation, there was a limit of 20% of the student body could participate in an after-school program up to 6 o'clock, and we did not add in the added phrase of the 20% would be 175 at maximum enrollment. So that concludes my
Thank
comments.
you.
Thanks.
So now we hear from the applicant and also appellant, Ben Resnick and Neil Bronner. Yeah. Do you want to, does Neil wish to speak?
No, Neil won't have to speak. I'll just...
Won't have to speak? Okay.
But there is an appellant on this, so I don't know if you want to hear from the appellant first.
I usually call the other appellants first would be appropriate. I do not see a public speaking card for either of the other two appellants. So there's no cards from the appellants on this.
Hey, Ben, there's no cards from the appellants on this at this point.
Thank you.
Hold on. Let me... Why don't we have?
I'll speak.
You wish to speak now? Is that okay? We usually have.
It's fine, just to move things along.
Sure.
Yes, respecting the councilman's time limit here.
Okay.
Ben Resnick with Jeffrey Mankles, Butler and Mitchell, representing New West Public Charter School here. So I want to first of all just point out that the plan approval that's before you was first filed back in 2013. It has taken a very long time to work through its process, and that's unfortunate because as a result, the school found itself where commitments that were made to in the original applications to the local public school that their kids would be able to go here, we were running up against those deadlines and those commitments. And just so we're clear, when the school indicated to parents of Brockton Elementary School that they would like to be able to enroll them, we were sitting with an approval from the City Planning Commission. I want to point out that the Planning Department itself had recommended approval of the full request for 875. It's the Planning Commission that reduced that number. Having said all that, we've come a long way, and there's been a tremendous amount of energy and effort put in by CD11 and in particular Councilman Bonin himself to try to work out and reach some agreement. Suffice it to say, in the short time we have, I don't want to go into the factual disputes or get into the arguments, who's right, who's wrong on facts and issues. I think all of the appellants' concerns about so-called school violations of people making out a wrong turn or people, dropping a kid off a block away. The school has addressed those issues in the interim. Those complaints have subsided. And I just want to put this in perspective. There are 750 kids who are brought to this school in the morning and 750 who leave in the afternoon. The school does that in 15 to 20 minutes without incident. If you do the math, at 180 school days a year, that's 270,000 kids brought and who come and go to this school. Yet there were just a handful. If you look at all of the complaints raised by the appellant, of all the so-called violations of people making a wrong turn or entering or exiting from a wrong place, you add it all up, it comes to 0.1%. meaning that the school's compliance with its conditions is 99.9%. Now, unless the city's standard for substantial conformance is perfection, the school has just about reached perfection. And so what we're asking for in the increase was the original application of $875. The school doesn't think it's unreasonable. The carpool can handle it. We're well below the number of cars we're allowed to bring based on traffic studies. We can easily accommodate that. But it sort of seems to have gone sideways somewhere in this whole process. So, for the record, I have one objection, and we've submitted a letter, and as the councilman pointed out, we take issue with condition 1. Not in its entirety, only the portion that says that for 7 years we can't even come back and ask or file for an increase in enrollment. The committee will do what it chooses. The council will accept the condition as it chooses. I just want you to know I don't think that's a legal condition. I don't think the city has the authority or power to tell anybody they cannot file for something and demonstrate based on the conditional use permit process that it complies with the conditions. One of the conditions we've agreed to is we're going to have DOT officers there monitoring the carpool. We're going to have ombudsmen. We're going to have monitors. These are all the new conditions. It seems to me that if we do well in the next year or even 2, we ought to be able to come back and demonstrate to the city that we've earned the right to have the extra 50 kids, which is what we're talking about. But to arbitrarily just impose a condition that says you can't even ask for it because we're just tired of dealing with you is just what it is. It's arbitrary and it's illegal. And so I ask you just to delete that point, and if you include it, I want the record to reflect that the school does not agree to that. Other than that, the school does accept all of the other conditions that the councilman has indicated. Thank you.
Mr. Resnick, just one.
If I'm going to do this, Chair, to save time, if I might, there are many people want to speak. Now, maybe I can just ask them all to stand, those who support the school, and maybe they'd be willing to waive their right. I can ask them to speak. With all those here who are in support of New West Charter School, please just stand and show your support. Just on behalf of the school, because we'd like to get this hearing moving quickly and respect Councilman Englander's conflict, those of you asked to speak, perhaps you can waive your right to speak. Thank you.
Mr. Resnick, just on the issue of condition number 1, so your contention is that the city cannot prohibit someone from, or an entity applying or for additional number of students. Correct. I mean, so we set a condition that at a certain cap, but
one can apply to demonstrate that one is asking for an increase in that cap. That doesn't mean the city is duty-bound to approve it, but the city is duty-bound to accept an application and process it in good faith and apply the law.
Okay, thank you. So with that, we'll go to Jay Handel, and after Jay Handel is Al Casas. These are 2 separate appellants. The rules are that each appellant and or applicant has 5 minutes to speak. All other speakers have 1 minute. But as Mr. Resnick and the committee agrees, if you want to waive your time to speak, I will call your name, and you could either say pass or come up and speak, and you have 1 minute. Thank you.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Jay Handel. I'm speaking as an individual. I will tell you that I am the chair of the West LA Neighborhood Council, and I tell you that because on December 19th of 2012, the Neighborhood Council sent to the Planning Department and Building and Safety a letter asking for a revocation hearing that never happened because of the conditions that were being violated. In 2014, we did the same thing. We are very pleased that the council member, and we've worked very close with the council member's office, to come up with these list of conditions, and we believe that the conditions are fair conditions based on what's been put together. There's one item that is not in the condition that we would request to be added in, and that is where there is a monitor that the monitor would also patrol around the blocks to ensure that the drop-offs are not happening a block away or 2 blocks away, because this is a number of the violations that we have right now. For the record, and for the parents that are here who may not know, there's over 230 violations. Now, Ben Resnick goes and tells you that this is not a big deal, it's a very small number. If you look at the pictures that are supplied to you, what you will see is kids in the street crossing around in front of buses, buses parked in front of fire hydrants. These are health and safety issues. These are not just blow them off issues. These are really important issues. So the monitor will make a big difference if the monitor does their job and really does address the violations. And if we have this group together that will meet on a quarterly basis, that will help. That will be a big deal because, quite frankly, it's a good school with good kids, but really just been a bad neighbor to the neighbors and the community as a whole. So all we're asking is that you go ahead and approve those as you see them, and take them to council and approve them and hold them to the letter of the law. What I'm asking today, more important than the conditions, is I'm asking Mr. Legrand, I'm asking Mr. Bush, I'm asking you, the council members, enforce the law. This is a planning issue. This is a property issue. This is about the conditional use permits. And we have not enforced the law. There is a provision in the code. It's $1,000 per violation of the CUP. And I sit here today as my last statement to tell you, and Mr. Resnick should know, the parking lot from day one has never been a parking lot. It's been a playground. They have never applied for a variance. They have never gotten a covenant agreement, and they have been out of compliance on that particular CUP issue from day one through today. So giving the extra slack is fine, but the condition where they must secure the parking is critical because they haven't done it in the past, they still haven't done it, and they're out of compliance. But generally, I personally am very pleased as the appellant with the deal that's been worked out, and what I would implore you to go ahead and move that forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Al Casas.
370 violations. I was going to use a slideshow for you, but you have no facility for that. So my name's Al Casas, and I'm an individual. I grew up in the area. I'm also a founding parent of New West Charter. I was their neighbor on Pico before they moved to this new location. They were a horrendous neighbor. They're still a horrendous neighbor. I grew up in a family that when you did something wrong, you were punished. When you did something right, you were rewarded. They have never, all they ask is to be rewarded. They're a bad neighbor. They have bad behavior. They intimidate the community. They intimidate the neighborhood council. They intimidate the CD11 council district. And I bet you they intimidate you guys if you're listening. You guys listening? They deluged you with emails. The kids aren't to blame. It's the administration. The administration demonstrates that bullying people is how you get your way. You're going to reward them. That's what you want the teachers, that's what you want the administration to teach your children. If you bully and you stomp your feet and you're a petulant child, you get your way. That's not the way I was raised. Is that the way you guys were raised? This is why they need to have a powerful attorney. This is why they need to send so many emails, is because they're petulant. They want their way regardless of what it does to the neighbors. You don't see many neighbors here because they've lost faith in the system. They've lost faith in you guys. They've lost faith. You guys wonder why you only get 20% voting? Because people have lost faith in the way you guys enforce the rules. You let powerful people deluge you with emails and get what they want, and you don't worry about the little guy, the ones that you always claim you're for. But obviously those poor neighbors, it's a working class neighborhood. Their kids aren't even allowed to go to that school. They're a block away, and they're not allowed to go to that school. So if you want to do something really good, you want to restore the faith of the community, you'll deny all of their things until they're in compliance. You heard the council district. You heard Jay Handel. You heard Ben Resnick say that they're trying to be in compliance. I was on every committee, ad hoc committee with them, and they are petulant. They bully everybody around. So if that's the example you want to give these children, be my guest. That's why the community has lost faith in all of you guys.
Okay, now we're going to go to... Yes, Mr. Englander.
Let me just ask the question. I believe those were all the appellants, correct? The applicant and the appellants? Are there members of the public who have filled out cards on either side that actually wish to speak? And if so, can I see those hands so I get an idea? Two? One? Okay. Is it one or two? Keep your hands up if there's two. Now they're growing. They're growing and I'm leaving. Wrong direction. So let me just ask the question again. How many members of the public wish to speak that have already filled out cards? I see no hands from the public. One. Let's put 1 minute on the clock, please. Hopefully you get paid by the word and not the time.
Well, I am an attorney.
What is your name, sir?
Michael Adriani.
Okay.
Thank you, counsel. I'm only here to speak because of the comments that I've heard. I was going to say a lot more about the school. I have an incoming 6th grader, potentially, I hope. But more importantly, I'm a neighbor, and I've heard a lot about the neighbor. I heard Councilman Bonin call somebody a bad neighbor, and when I grew up, that's a big deal. That's an insult. But I didn't hear any facts. I didn't hear anything but hyperbole and generalizations. And I know that Mr. Bonin doesn't live in my neighborhood. I live a stone's throw from this school. I've lived there for 10 years. I haven't heard why this is such a problem from Councilman Bonin. I've heard traffic, maybe, but I've lived there for 10 years. The traffic's always been bad. When did it get worse? Trader Joe's made it worse. The school didn't make it worse. Trader Joe's, Bed Bath & Beyond. I haven't heard the facts which support this opposition, and I don't like being called a bad neighbor. I'm a neighbor. He's not.
Thank you, sir.
Neighbors.
Your time is up.
Thank you.
So with this, Mr. Chair, if I could ask that all the cards actually be submitted as part of the public record, that we actually take the cards, so they're actually submitted and documented that you were all here. They're scanned in by the clerk. They'll all be part of the document that you were all here, wishing to speak on the item, and you could have. Want to give you that opportunity as well. And so with that, I want to just close before the vote if I could, and just say I've been through the school wars as well, and have many schools in my district, both public and private and charter. In fact, I have the single largest charter in the country in my district, and one that I'm incredibly proud of. But certainly we have issues with schools, and it's a shame that we do. With that, I did see what the tactics deployed in this situation were, and they were appalling. I got phone calls from parents and a lot of social media as well, threatening that my colleague, who I happen to know very, very well, and he's not just a colleague, I consider Mike Bonin a personal friend. And I know him, and I know not only his brilliance, but his heart of gold. And I can tell you firsthand that I saw that these kids by the administration were set up as pawns. And I don't think the parents had any part of that strategy. And in fact, from what I heard from many of them is they weren't even aware of it. And it was just wrong. And which is why I support the condition. And it doesn't say that they can't apply. You're right, Mr. Resnick. We don't have that legal authority. But it goes on record saying it will not be amended in 7 years. And I think it's important to get that on the record. Does that mean you couldn't come in here and do this again? Shame on any administrator that would try to put kids in and add enrollment and give false faith to parents that they would have an opportunity before getting that approval, before working through all the other conditions. Let that be on the record. Let the parents know what that administration did in using you guys. And that's a shame, and it's wrong. And that's why I support that condition. And you've got my support on that. And I think those administrators, quite frankly, and the parents, first, the parents should be very grateful. They have a council member that actually does care about the residents, that does care about the students, that care about all the stakeholders and works tirelessly on their behalf to do so. They owe them a little bit of gratitude and some apology, I believe, for the tactics that they deployed in this. I'd like to see that relationship and those fences mended, because it's important that we all work together for the betterment of the future, which are our children and our residents. So thank you, Mike. With that, Mr. Chair. call for the question unless you've got any other comments.
Thank you. Before we call the question, I just want to clarify for the record, anybody who submitted a card has waived their right to speak, correct? Anybody? Okay. So with that, we will move this item number 7. Let me get the correct language here. Okay, we're going to move the item with the conditions proposed by Councilmember Bonin in Council District 11. With respect to the 3 different appeals, how would we word that?
I believe it's a grant in part, deny in part. 2 of the appellants were basically against the project. 1 appeal by, I believe her name is Sarah Giroux Chavez. She was in support of the school. So it looks like it's a grant in part, deny in part with the modified conditions that were submitted by the planning department and as well by the findings as well and the condition enumerated by CD 11.
Okay, so we will approve the project, and we're granting in part and denying in part the appeals and adopting the conditions proposed by Council District 11, as well as the findings that were submitted today. Okay, there with no objection, so ordered. And this would be in Council 1?
Next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday. Okay, good. So ordered. Thank you very much. That was item number 7. Now, if we go to the ICOs, item number 2, we have a number of speakers here as well.
On the ICOs, for those of you who are here on the ICOs, the interim control ordinances, those are up next. I've got literally less than minutes. If there are any speakers, I'm inclined to move those forward as well. I'm fully in support of those interim control ordinances. In fact, would like to go on the record that hopefully when I get into the next room, we can give some more money in the Budget and Finance Committee to the Planning Department to step up their efforts to finish the community plans so we don't have to do these ICOs all the time, which to me are ridiculous. Let the community dictate what happens in their neighborhoods, get it on paper, go through that process, and so we need to get more planners on board right away. And hopefully we can do that in the budget process to get those things resolved and caught up. So I'm all for it. And if I could, unless there's anything you've got to do with staff on these legally, Mr. Chair, to ask if we can first see, do we have any members of the public who absolutely would like to speak for their 1 minute on the ICOs? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 3? 4. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and, if we could, Mr. Chair, hear from those 4. If you can all come up at the same time, just go ahead and line up at the podium. And I appreciate it. The chair does a much better job than I do at running these meetings, and this is his meeting to run. Just
have a new sergeant at arms here.
Trying to usurp my authority a little bit here as a chair of public safety. And so, if you guys. That 4 just grew? Okay. How many are there?
They're sitting back down.
Okay. Because I don't want to deny you your right. But it's your choice. If I leave, it means you just come back for another day. So, okay, the 3. Okay. Can we set them up a minute each? And you already know my vote. You know where I'm at with it. And I'm supportive unless you guys are against it. I'm assuming you're against it since you want to speak.
Just an adjustment.
An adjustment. Okay. Please. Thank you. And thank you all for understanding. This is not normal. So this is beyond normal, particularly for me. So I just want to let you guys know that. Thank you.
What's your name, sir?
Daniel Brook.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Time started? Oh, it started. I live in the Larchmont Heights neighborhood, and the Larchmont Heights area in the ICO has by far the most restrictive, severe restrictions on construction, far out of line with the rest of the city, far out of line with the rest of the ICO. The restrictions in the neighborhood are that you can only build 120% of the existing structure, and the existing structures are 1,000 to 1,500 square foot homes. So that means you can only build a 1,700 foot square home, which is far out of line with modern family homes. So I'm asking, and this is again far out of line with the rest of the ICO, with the rest of the city. There was no due diligence done on this number, this 120%. It was only based on recommendations from the Larchmont Village Neighborhood Association. I'm proposing an amendment you can do to still prevent mansions, which I'm all for. All you have to do is make it either 80, 100, 180 or 200%, or make it 45 to 50% of the lot size, or cap it at 3,000 square feet. All of that accomplishes the same thing.
Thank you.
It doesn't destroy the neighborhood.
Thank you so much. Next item, next person.
Hi, thank you, members, council members. John Durler. Yes, I am going to echo this gentleman. Larchmont Heights, if you look at that council district for the ICO, is more of a stranglehold than any of the other districts. There's 120%. For example, if you have a 1,000 square foot house, you can only add 200 square feet. We have a lot of families that are moving into that neighborhood, and this is a stranglehold. And so there needs to be a compromise, especially for this particular one. 120% is really bad. For example, possibly do 35% of the land. The land may be 7,000 square feet. You do 35%, you have a 2,800 square foot house. These houses are 2-bedroom, 1-bath. Families that want to come in and live, they can't have a 3-bedroom or a 4-bedroom or 2 bathrooms. So definitely I'm not into the mansionization. Thank you for that. Let's calm it down, but at least let's don't strangle this Larchmont Heights area. Give it a little bit more. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person, please.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. My name is William Kuzman. Never really been afforded an opportunity to speak against this ICO, but I did something different. You have my formal comments in writing. Oh me, oh my property value has died. It's because the council believed a lie. Old Granada Hills is not changing. The facts don't need rearranging. Contrary to the city planner louses, there's no proliferation of hulking houses. It's a lie to say there's a trend and stick us in the end. No threat to welfare, safety, or health. No developers striving to create wealth. There's no affluence in my property value, but oh, how I long for it to be true. To enjoy an average price of $1 million plus instead of $450K that's ascribed to us. And the council violated, and the planning department missed some facts, and the council violated the Brown Act. The ordinance has some fatal flaws which circumvent California laws. We are out here in the sticks and we're being treated like hicks. We haven't been noticed of a change.
Thank you.
And there's
Thank you.
going to be
Thank you,
outreach.
sir. Thank you very much.
No outreach, no notification.
I didn't find, sir, I didn't find your card. What's your name?
William Kuzman.
William Kuzman.
Can you fill out a card, please, for our records?
No, the card was filled out and handed in at the beginning of
You'll
the
find it.
meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Joan Fitzpatrick, and I live in the area between Vista and Fairfax, and between Melrose and Santa Monica. Now, between La Brea and Vista, you're giving all kinds of bonuses. They can build almost 5,000 square feet. La Brea to Vista, Santa Monica to Beverly Boulevard. And I'd like to know why. Why are we not getting those same rights? It's the Orthodox area, and I'd like to know, why can't we get that? Why are we restricted in our area? The property prices are going to go way, way down. People are getting $1.3 million for those homes that are teardowns now. You can bet that it's going down to $800,000. And there aren't any historical homes in the area that I'm speaking of. None. Not one. Now, the people from Miracle Mile brought all of their hatred over to this area. There are beautiful historical homes in Miracle Mile. There are none here. And you're just, so that's two issues. There are no historical homes.
Thank
the
you very
property
much.
values are going down. But what is going on with the Orthodox
Your time is
area?
up, ma'am. Your time
Why
is up.
are they allowed all of
Ma'am,
these
thank you very much,
bonuses?
ma'am. Thank you. As it relates to the one comment on the Larchmont, if I could, I would suggest there's ample opportunity this is coming to council.
Tomorrow, council member.
There's little opportunity to perhaps go meet with, I'm not sure where the council member CD4 is on that. I believe it's in Council District 4. and I believe an ICO can be amended, but it's also temporary. So these are only for 1 year, is that correct? Or it's a 2 year, I'm sorry, 2 year, 22 months. So, and it can be, I believe, amended as well. You can amend an ICO during the time, or it can't. Oh, you know what, I'm thinking of the, another one we just did on a carve-out. In any event, perhaps there's an opportunity to go meet with the council district on that particular issue for Larchmont. But with that, I would ask that we call for the question.
We'll move this item with no objection. That's
So
item
can
number 2.
Terry Kaufman, Macias, I just want to make clear, there's 3 recommendations that you're making. One is to adopt the written report. One is to adopt the revised resolution for the HPOZ ICO, and one is to adopt the revised resolution for the single-family, and that's Ordinance 183497. So those are 3 separate.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. So ordered. Next items 5 and 6. The last item, item number 2, is going to council tomorrow, correct?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you.
On item 5 and 6, I'm inclined to move and support both of those items as well. I know we've got staff here that's going to speak to that.
I think that 5 and 6, Councilman, are interrelated, and I believe that 6 is an old project and 5 is a revised project.
Correct. That's my understanding as well. And those are both in CD 10. Are there any members from the public that wish to speak, either the applicant, supporters, or opponents, on those items? Applicant? Opponents? By the look on your face. Saw that. Okay. There's a sign in the back. Try not to bump into it on the way out. Okay. We've only got 2 speakers on that item. Three speakers on that item. Can we go ahead and open it up for public comment, Mr. Chair, on that? Okay.
Grace Yu. After Grace Yu is Aura Vasquez.
Thank you, council members, committee members. My name is Grace Yu, and I'm a longtime community organizer, attorney, and resident of Koreatown. And I gave the appellant today, Mr. Michael Hakim, the opportunity to ask for a continuance so that he could work with the community. And I shared with him that we could do it the proper way, in which he could have an opportunity to not be shown for what he is and what he has done to the community, which is lie straight face to my face, telling me that the organization Kiwa is supporting him. And I said, I have a letter that shows that they're opposing you. He takes my letter, hides it, puts it in his pocket, and is saying, I don't have it. Then he gives it off, hands it off to his colleague, and they walk out the door. Strange things like this, where they just blatantly lie, thinking we'll disappear. Of course, we have the letter here for you.
Thank you. Aura Vasquez, Tanya Maftakar.
Hi, good afternoon.
Oh, they did not wish to speak? Who wishes to speak on this?
It's a lot of people speaking.
So I'm done. I gotta go.
So is this item continue?
No, they can. He can go ahead and hear the item.
Okay.
It just won't have a quorum, so it'll be a recommendation from the chair.
Okay, perfect.
I mean, that's all we could do on that item.
Terry Kaufman, Macias City Attorney's Office, that means you have to hold the hearing at council on these items.
Yeah.
Pardon me.
Full council or again here?
Is it a timed issue as well?
Hold on. I've given a lot of leeway in this meeting about giving council members time. He needs to be at budget and finance, but We're going to continue this item to next week and allow people to speak on this item at next week's hearing. I'll leave it up to you. There's only going to be myself here standing. If you wish to speak on it today, you would also have another chance to speak on it next week when after we continue it. So I'll leave the roll open, but if you want to speak today, that's fine. Mr. Englander needs to get to budget and finance. So I will go through the cards, and you can speak today and speak next week when we have quorum. So either way, and we're continuing it to next week.
Perfect. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Aura Vasquez.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Aura Vasquez. I'm a resident of K-Town, and I am really alarmed by the way that this item has been conducted. This has been recommended by the planning to deny twice, and I don't understand why now are here again speaking about on this item. There is thousands of people that have not been included on the process. This project doesn't even have an EER, which is really alarming. So I'm urging you, Councilmember Huizar, to please continue this item for 30 days. Require a recirculation of the MND and require preparation of the EER for the following reasons. This project is really just bad. It hasn't had any accountability for the people that live in the area. A 30-story building being built in any community, that's a great impact. I mean, we just saw so many other people complaining about 100 students in school. This is outrageous.
Thank you very much. What was your name?
Hi, Tanya Maftakar.
Okay, go right ahead.
So, Koreatown has the second largest population of people per capita, second to New York City. The area has lots of dilapidated buildings in the area. There is a lack of apartments in this area. I'm a property owner near the RFK schools. I receive multiple phone calls a day asking for vacancies. Because of the lack of apartments, the prices of one-bedrooms have definitely skyrocketed, which are good for me, but at the same time, I feel bad for half these people who don't have apartments to rent. We owe it to the Korean community to build safer, newer buildings to help families looking for better living conditions. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Robert Babish, and I'm a resident of Koreatown. The mayor's speech was just very inspirational and very powerful on the state of Los Angeles. And he stated that he wanted to build 100,000 units in the next 5 years. And in many cases, the only direction to go is up in density populated areas. And the history of Los Angeles has a great history of rezoning areas to allow for high-rises to exist with very quaint communities in Beverly Hills and Westwood area along the Wilshire Corridor. I think it's now time for Koreatown to have the same opportunity to go up and have things peacefully coexisting and improve the area with a high-rise building, which is a world-class building that they're proposing. So, thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Naryong Hanaki, and I live in the neighborhood, and I just realized that there's such a strong demand for the Korean community. A lot of Korean people are moving from Korea to live in Koreatown, and I just feel that the demand is so strong, but supply is not enough. So especially right in front, there's a huge school there, community school. If you can build a building for the residents plus institute for the children for math or the English or a lot of things we can do with the building. And I saw that the project is really nice. I mean, I think it will be very, very important in that neighborhood. If we can build a building there.
Thank you. Your name is Naryong Hanaki?
Naryong Hanaki.
Okay, thank you.
I am Mrs. Youngju Choi, and I was raised up in Korea, but when I came to the Koreatown, but back home, the buildings are much nicer and clean, but in the Koreatown, very old buildings, and the
in a neighborhood for
What's your last name?
John Park.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been in a neighborhood. I grew up in the neighborhood for more than 15 years. And I see they build tall buildings, beautiful buildings, and I see a lot of improvement around the buildings. And now we have a great school in 8th Street. And I think it should be, we should build something to match that school and improve neighborhood. And that lot is already vacant for so many years. And I think we should use that property to build something useful for the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Hong Kim. 저는 찬성입니다.
Sean Cook, City Planning Department here to translate. I'm in support.
한인타운에 큰 건물이 들어서면서 그것이 미관상으로 나쁠 수 있지만 그것보다는 더 그 상징물이 되고 명물이 된다고 생각합니다.
There may be some aesthetic impacts or considerations to be made, but I believe that this project will be a landmark in the community.
큰 건물이 들어서면서 외부 인구가 유입되면서 그 지역에 스몰 비즈니스가 활성화되고
With the influx of new residents, the small businesses will continue to thrive.
스몰 비즈니스가 활성화되면서 직업 창출에도 도움이 됩니다.
And that should in turn also help employment in the area.
앞으로 10년, 20년, 30년을 내다보면은 실보다는 득이 더 많다고 생각합니다.
If we look out over the next 20 to 30 years, I believe that there would be much more positives from this project than negatives.
깊이 헤아려 주시 바랍니다. 감사합니다.
Request your deep consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name is Jung Sik Hong. My 30 years I live in Koreatown. And 유독 그 지역만이 발전이 안 되고 있습니다.
I've been a resident for 30 years in the area, and this is the only area that has not seen growth.
누군가가 꼭 발전시킬 수 있는 그런 손을 대서 지역 발전을 시켜야 될 그런 지역입니다. 다른 데는 조금씩 발전이 됐지만 거기만은 유독 30년이 넘도록 하나도 발전된 게 하나도 없습니다. 주위의 여러 사람들도 그걸 원하고 있고요.
Many in the area are encouraged by the sign of progress in the area represented by this project, and hope that you would consider.
발전이 되도록 힘써 주시기를 간곡히 부탁드립니다.
So that the community can continue to make progress. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name is Saeed Hakim. I'm the owner in the area of Koreatown and 6100 Wilshire property. Koreatown is one of the largest population in the state. Unfortunately, since 30-40 years ago, hasn't been very, very few projects was built. And now, fortunately, they put such a big school in 8th Street. And this building that they propose to build is also next to the 8th Street, Catalina and Kenmore. And here, unfortunately, all the people coming from way distance and so forth, because there is not enough apartment house, and if it is very, because of no competition, it's all run down because there is very few new building, and all has been damaged building and so forth. Now this project is going to carry a lot of apartment, and that cause that a lot of people can live next to a school
Thank you.
without having the less traffic. It's helped the traffic as well. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Brady Collins. I'm a doctoral candidate at UCLA's Department of Urban Planning and a staff member of Kiwa, the Koreatown Immigrant Workers Alliance. And on behalf of the membership and constituency of Kiwa, I must continue to express our deep objection to the proposed development at 805-833 South Catalina Street. We demand that the Plum Committee deny this project from moving forward without a full environmental impact review. The project will place severe traffic burdens on an already overdense area. As you've already heard, Koreatown is the densest neighborhood in Los Angeles. The traffic study conducted by the developers demonstrated an alarming 28% projected traffic increase, where a 12% increase is sufficient to require EIR level analysis. Lastly, there's no community benefits. We strongly believe that the project must incorporate affordable housing, and we demand at least 20% affordable dwelling units. Any project of significant size such as this must also contribute to the open space accessible to the entire public. For all these reasons, we urge you to deny this project until a full environmental impact review has been conducted. And I have a letter here signed by our ED.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Last speaker.
Michael Hakim, the applicant for Colony Holdings, LLC. I want to thank you very much for your consideration of our project. We've done numerous studies on our traffic mitigation, environmental studies. This is the second round. I've been applying for about 12 years now, and it's time for us to build this beautiful project for the community and greater Los Angeles. There is only 8,000 units being built in Los Angeles City at this time, which we are on track for 25. We should be about 25,000 units per the mayor. And this project is close to downtown, close to the west side, and it's in the center of Wilshire and by the schools, so the community could walk to the children to school from the property. And we have a number of shortage of housing, and it's right across the street from R5 zone. There's benefiting the community in a great way, and I'd really hope that you consider our project. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the public comment. As I mentioned, this item will be continued for 1 week. We satisfied public comment, but since there was some confusion initially, we'll keep public comment open at the next hearing as well. So with that, we'll continue this item for the next Plum Committee meeting. Next item.
And that applies also to 6, Councilman, which is interrelated to item 6?
Both 5 and 6.
Okay.
Yes, 5 and 6.
And Mr. Chair, for clarification, next meeting would be May 5th.
Is that next week? It is,
yes.
Right? May, okay. 5 de Mayo, huh? Yeah. All right, and that, for the record, isn't Mexico's independence. It was the Battle of Puebla, right? Everybody thinks it's Mexican independence. Next item.
Do you want to consider the commissioner's appointment, item 1, or the LAX item? Oh, she's not here.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Parker Center.
Parker Center.
Yeah. You're looking at last week's.
I'm
agenda.
looking at last week. Sorry.
Item one is Parker Center.
Do you want to do Parker Center?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's go to that.
Item 1 is a Cultural Heritage Commission report relative to the inclusion of Parker Center as a historic cultural monument.
Okay. And before we begin on this item, again, let me. Why don't we just get a quick report on it?
Certainly. Good afternoon. Ken Bernstein with the Department of City Planning and Office of Historic Resources. We are bringing before you the report from the Cultural Heritage Commission on the Historic Cultural Monument application for Parker Center. This was a somewhat unusual nomination in that it was initiated by the Cultural Heritage Commission itself, which does not happen frequently. Most of our nominations are initiated by community members or by property owners, but given the significance of the structure, the Commission did initiate this and took it under consideration, and upon deliberation found that the property met 2 of the criteria for historic cultural monument status. First, that it reflects the broad cultural, economic, and social history of the community for its significance to the history of the Los Angeles Police Department and its role in urban policing nationally. And secondly, that it's a notable work of master architect Welton Beckett, who was also responsible for numerous other Los Angeles landmarks, including the Cinerama Dome, the Music Center, the Capitol Records Building, the Bullock's Pasadena, and many others. Parker Center is is a 1955 international-style modernist structure. And again, the Commission's recommendation is that it meets two of the criteria. Two of our Cultural Heritage Commissioners are here today, Commission President Richard Barron and Jeremy Irvine, who could speak or answer any questions on behalf of the Commission.
Great, thank you. We could hear from Richard Barron. Welcome.
Hi.
Hi.
Richard Barron, President of the Cultural Heritage Commission. Our commission voted unanimously to move the Parker Center to be a cultural monument. We feel very strongly that it's a significant building in the Civic Center core. We also feel that prior to dismantling a building with historic significance, that the city of Los Angeles needs to really look seriously at a civic center master plan to identify other sites for potential development. The Bureau of Engineering has been moving forward with potential demolition of the building in order to put 1.1 million square feet on that site. And we think that prior to any thinking about that there needs to be a more holistic look at the Civic Center, at the downtown Civic Center, and we'd like to see that. We'd like to see this made into a monument to protect the building, and furthermore have a master plan going forward, looking at such sites as the famous Civic Center Mall.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Adrian Scott Fine. After Adrian Scott Fine is Ari Simon.
Good afternoon. Adrian Fine with the Los Angeles Conservancy. We're also here fully in support of this nomination for Parker Center and what it represents in terms of the significance. Some of that it's already been mentioned, so I won't say that again, but I will say Parker Center is the backdrop to many important events, controversial stories in LA from its mid-20th century era, from its early urban renewal and impact on Little Tokyo, to the Japanese, to the African American, to the Latino communities. It has great significance and tells an important story. And for all those reasons, even buildings that have controversial histories and sometimes negative histories, they still are important, telling the story of Los Angeles and how far we have come. We're firmly in support of this nomination, but also firmly believe that there's a preservation alternative here, a win-win in terms of meeting the city's goals of housing city staff at this location, but also allowing for preservation to occur. So we highly urge you to support this nomination. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Ari Simon, George Walt. George Walt.
Is there a time? I'm not sure if that applied to everybody else. I'm against the proposal. I think it's bad history, it's bad preservation, and it's bad faith. The run-up in this effort to get this cultural landmark established, the Conservancy and the Commission has used it as an opportunity to raise their visibility, and they're entitled to that to a certain extent. But what's been happening has been a complete whitewashing of the history behind the Parker Center. They've even gone so far as to suggest that Tom Bradley had a great time as a police officer in the department. He actually left the department in 1961 under the Parker regime because he wasn't going anywhere, and he knew that. In fact, the first captain, African-American captain, wasn't even established until 1969. That was Homer Broom. Also, the Commission did not actually do this unanimously. It was only a 4-0 vote. And also, they didn't actually get the council to extend the nomination, which is only supposed to be 90 days. So there's a procedural problem because it's now expiring tomorrow because the council hasn't acted on it. So,
thank you very much, sir. Christine Kushima. Okay, Keith Nakata.
Hi, good afternoon. Keith Nakata. I support the HCM designation of Parker Center. We have finally reached a point in the Civic Center area of preserving and restoring both the building that we are meeting in today and the Hall of Justice. So now seems like a good time to also preserve Parker Center. Thank you.
Thank you very much. First, I want to thank those who came out and spoke on this item, and because of the lack of quorum and also possibility of looking into this further about our next steps, we are going to continue this item for another week. However, I do want to state that we've had recent conversation with the mayor's office as well as BOE about some further analysis to be included in the EIR that may consider revised project alternative. Also, as I've been looking at this, I've been very interested in looking at a master plan for the complete area of our civic center, and I've been concerned about any decision we make now, although it's within the realm of the EIR, whether that would have any impact on any master planning we may be doing for the area. I am still I'm still very interested in seeing a master plan for the civic center, irrespective of what the decision is here. I do have a question for staff, if staff may come up again. The EIR includes a preservation option where the main administration building of Parker Center along with its public art is preserved while a new tower is built on the former jail and parking structure. Is it possible for staff to prepare targeted designation language that would grant monument status for the admin building's facade and publicly accessible areas, but also allow a partial preservation with new tower alternatives? Is that possible to do by next week if we come up with some language?
Again, Ken Bernstein, Department of City Planning. Yes, it is possible. The council has the authority to limit the scope of the historic monument designation, and staff could prepare some suggestions. Having said that, it is also possible to designate the entirety of the property and allow still for changes, alterations, even demolitions in keeping with any of the alternatives in the EIR. Those changes merely would need to go before the Cultural Heritage Commission for review. So the historic cultural monument status does not freeze the building in place, that all elements that are included in the designation must be preserved. So those are two options: to leave in place the more extensive designation, or to try to tailor the designation now if you have a sense of what elements you'd like to include under that protection.
Okay. Now, if we were to adopt such a targeted designation as monument, what oversight will the Cultural Heritage Commission have?
Any permit, any proposal for substantial alteration or demolition would be reviewed by the Cultural Heritage Commission, and the Commission would have the opportunity to object or not object to the issuance of a permit. That objection period under our Cultural Heritage Ordinance runs for only 180 days. The time for objection may be extended for an additional 180 days by a vote of the City Council. So the Commission has the ability to review any proposed alterations, but that is time limited.
Is that only for the admin building, or would that also apply to a new tower, or both?
If the new tower were proposed within the envelope of what's included in the designation, the Commission would have the opportunity to review that and object or not object to a permit for that construction.
Okay, thank you. And finally, LA's code does not allow extensions of time for nominations of HCM status. However, if more analysis is to be done on the Parker Center EIR, could the council instruct that the nomination come back to council as part of the new EIR analysis or amendments to the EIR?
I'll defer to the city attorney, but I don't believe that it can be extended beyond that 105 days total in the ordinance, which expires May 14th, I believe. So there's no opportunity to extend beyond that without reinitiating a new nomination.
Okay.
Terry Kaufman, Messiah City Attorney's Office. I think the only way to do that would be to reinitiate the nomination.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. This was all very helpful. And again, I think some of the discussions we've been having about how to make a decision on this very important matter in the context of a broader plan for the Civic Center. Even if we did have quorum, we were planning on continuing it 1 week just to finish up some of those discussions, look at the alternatives before us and options. And so we should and will get this back to committee next week and then move forward. May 5th. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bernstein. Thank you. So we'll move this item. I will continue this item for 1 week. Thank you. Next item.
Next item, Councilman, is a proposed LAX supplemental use district.
Thank you. Welcome. At our last meeting, we don't have to rehash the whole thing, but our last meeting we asked that LAX, let me see if there's any public comments first. What item is, what number is this? This is 7, huh? 3, I'm sorry, 3. Okay, there are some cards. 3. We asked at the last meeting if we were to meet with the attorney for Regency Outdoor with respect to some other issues and whether or not we should have closed session. Our city attorney has advised us that closed session would not be appropriate at this time, but I do want to know, I did ask that Regency Outdoor and their representatives felt that they weren't being heard prior to us making a decision. I wanted to make sure that they were being heard and to have this whole past week to come up, whether we agree or disagree, at least have those discussions. Were they had and what were the conclusions?
Nick Marisich from the City Planning Department. I'm joined by Lisa Trifoletti from Los Angeles World Airports. I'll have Lisa speak to any conversations that have been had in the last week.
Sure. Lisa Trifoletti on behalf of LAWA. We did have a conversation via telephone with the representatives for Regency. I did have an opportunity to consult with the city attorney's office, both the city attorneys that represent LAWA and also the planning department. We did also meet with I did also meet with the executive director and COO about the proposals, and what we would say today is that the request for sign credits, I think there was a request by Regency that if billboards are taken down that they would have a sign credit be included as part of the ordinance, is one that the airport cannot agree to as part of the land use ordinance. So we have met over the course of the year. We have, and I got all the dates if you want to know for the record, we have our commercial development group has met with Mike Molina 4 times over the course of the year. We are committed to continuing the dialogue on the lease negotiations, and we would like to recognize that they are a subtenant, so we're going to also be working with the tenant, Park and Fly, to help kind of bring the lease to a resolution.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Victor De La Cruz.
Good afternoon, Victor De La Cruz, Manat, Phelps & Phillips on behalf of Regency Outdoor Advertising. Regency, a decades-long stakeholder at LAX, is the only sign company with billboards at LAX. These billboards have been there before this was even airport property, and they are worth millions. Unfortunately, we are concerned that this ordinance has been structured to allow our competitors to come into the airport and benefit from the removal of Regency billboards so that they can put up their own signs. Your draft citywide sign ordinance, at your direction, provides that sign reduction should go to the sign company. This sign district, however, operates in the opposite direction. What message do you send to the business community when a city agency creates one set of rules for itself and another one for everyone else, in the process destroying decades of business goodwill at its whim? Yesterday I received a call from the airport. It happened at about 5 p.m. or so, and I was told that this was a done deal, that there was no negotiation, that from the executive director's standpoint and from the COO's standpoint, there wasn't going to be a deal. I don't know how that's a discussion.
Thank you. Kirby Israelson? Kirby. Loris Hughes. After Laura Hughes is Don Duckworth.
Good afternoon. Lori Hughes, Executive Director, Gateway 2 LA, representing the businesses along Century Boulevard, the hotels, off-airport parking, and office buildings. We want to thank the LAWA planning staff. We think they've done a great job. We're in support of the sign district. We feel it will bring much needed signage, directional signage, will improve and enhance the visitor experience. Our stakeholders share the same customers as LAWA, so we're very concerned about the customers' experience at LAWA, and we feel that this will be a great improvement. We're also very pleased that it would include a reduction in some of the billboards that are on LAWA land. Excuse me. On LAWA land, we have 42 billboards in a mile and a half, and we'd love to see a few less. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Don Duckworth. After Don Duckworth is Tricia Keene from Council District 11.
Yes, sir. I'm the Executive Director of the Westchester Town Center Business Improvement District. I spoke before you last week at last week's hearing, and we submitted a letter from the bid board, as well as another letter from that John Rulin submitted from the Westchester Streetscape Improvement Association, a non-profit streetscape beautification community group. Today I bring a letter from the former chairman of the Westchester Family YMCA board asking that this item be passed from this body to the city council, and also a letter from Karen Dial of Drollinger Properties asking the same thing. I think our request is simple. We'd like to have this come before the whole city council as quickly as possible. If we can do that, there's a significant community benefit to be derived from that, and we would ask that you show us that favor. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Tricia Keene.
Good afternoon. Tricia Keene, Director of Land Use and Planning for Councilmember Mike Bonin. We have been and remain in support of the LAX sign district and would definitely like to see this move forward as soon as possible to council. At the Plum Committee meeting last week, I did read into the record a couple of requested changes, so I just wanted to reiterate those for the record, and I know they have been submitted in writing, so they should be before you. I'm happy to read them again if you need them. But I think at this point we would just like to see the sign district move forward to council so that we can get this acted on and get the community benefits that will derive from this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So thank you all, and thank you for your indulgence on this matter. I am and was concerned about any possible litigation should we move forward without speaking to all stakeholders. We're going to move this item to full council without a recommendation since there is no quorum. It's a report from the chair, but also I would ask that if there is any further discussions to be had before we hear this item in council between LAX and those stakeholders, please hold those discussions so that we could assure that any decisions we're making in council are made with the full awareness of what are the different issues at stake. So with that, we'll move this item to full council without recommendation, and if LAX could continue discussing with affected stakeholders on this, it would be greatly appreciated. Okay. Thank you very much. Any other items, please?
Public comment.
Public comment? There's no public comment? So ordered. Thank you. This meeting is adjourned.